Hello, I'm Dr. Infinity, and this is White Pill Media.
Look alive, wage slaves! Presenting.
Boys, I'm gonna ask you to do something a little different with me today. We are going to go back in time. We're gonna go back to 2013, and we're going to CHUD Heaven. I'm gonna be talking about young me back in the day playing like Magic the Gathering for the first time. Hopefully, I have a few funny stories for you guys. I'm probably not going to really make any other Magic content. I don't play anymore. I haven't played for years. But I have a few like what I think are, amusing stories, so I thought I'd share them. If you don't know what it is, you probably won't like this video. This is for people that at least have like kind of a general knowledge of it. But 2013, or what I like to refer to as Chud Heaven, good times. Good times. Hey, Dr. Infinity, I don't know what MTG was like back then. I'm a Zoomer. Can you describe it for me? Sure, Zoomer. The easiest way for me to describe Magic back then and playing Jund and Naya Pod was imagine you have a six-pack of Bud Light Orange. You have a little box of mint Milano cookies, and you're watching a Hillary Swank double feature. That that is what Magic was like back then. That was Chud Heaven. That was good mid range back and forth. That was nice shit. That was really good shit. Anyways, to start off, I used to be a Yu-Gi-Oh player. Like right before this, like in middle school and then like early high school, I used to play like Yu-Gi-Oh, and it was like synchro plants and like doppel plants. That was my type of shit. Once like the XC monsters or whatever the fuck those were came out, I kind of dropped off. Some of my friends dropped off and they started like playing Magic. So I'm like, okay, I'll play Magic. I didn't really like Magic at first, but I ended up joining right in the Titans were legal at that point, right? And Birthing Pod was legal, and that was a deck. So my friends thought like, well, you kind of like plants and like monsters and shit, so maybe you'll like Naya Pod. So I'm like, okay, I'll play that. And I played Birthing Pod. It was not very good. Awful, awful player. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing it. And my first ever Magic event was I was going against, I think it was just like blue white control with like Gideon Jura as like their big planeswalker, and like Elspeth, right? Elspeth like made three warriors for like a +1 or something, like 3/1/1s, and it was just kind of that, right? But the I did win my first match, so that was exciting, right? There was a point where like I had a Zealous Conscripts in my hand, and he had a Gideon Jura, and Gideon's zero ability is that Gideon turns into a 6/6, right? And I'm like, I think I have lethal, even though I don't really understand the game or what I'm doing. So I'm like, conscripts, um, target your Gideon. I can do that, right? I can target your Gideon. He's like, yes, you can do that. That's fine. I'm like, okay. Now I'm activating your planeswalker. Even though it's your planeswalker, I'm going to activate it. And he's like, yep, all good. And I won. That's how I ended up beating him. I won like the game one, I lost game two, and then game three I also used Zealous Conscripts. That was a really good card. Zealous Conscripts was a really good card. I'd say my favorite card, like overall, is Huntmaster of the Fells. I love him. He's versatile. He's a 4 mana 2/2. I'm big on those. That was really sweet. I did like playing Naya Pod at that point. I think I have better memories than there's some nostalgia, right? Because Delver of Secrets, that was around in that time, and I remember getting my ass beat a lot against that deck, but I was still like having fun because I was like new to Magic, and just playing it with my friends and everything. It was still like enjoyable, and it was still like fun to like go drive out to a event like a Star City or something. That was still like really fun. Even though I wasn't good, I like never made day two, but it was still cool. After like Naya Pod, like that stuff, like most of it rotated out. Like I started playing Jund, and that was the good shit. That was that was the good shit, right? You had Huntmaster, you had Vampire Nighthawk. That guy was sweet. That guy was really sweet. You had Olivia Olderon. You got Big V. You give him the V. You got Thragtusk and just like solid removal spells, like Sire of Insanity. That was a sweet card against like Sphinx's Revelation. You probably still fucking lost if they ever resolved the Sphinx's Revelation, right? You probably fucking lost. But it was cool. Like solid removal as well. It was just yeah, really good shit there. Oh, Bonfire of the Damned. That was a neat card. That was fucking neat, dude. That was a good card. I really like Bonfire. Yeah, that was like retard level of intelligence. That was my type of card. I could handle that card. Anyway, but a little story about I guess it's just some Star City. I don't know if they still do Star Cities with like all the COVID bullshit and all that faggotry. But I don't know if they like have events now or whatever the fuck, right? I was playing in a side event because of course I got knocked out fairly early in like day one, but I was playing the side event, right? And I was playing for a box, and it's like round two or something. It was like round two, and I'm playing the Jund mirror match, and I really liked that because I just like mid range overall compared to other archetypes because it feels like there's just like really good back and forth, like I'm never gonna do something so insane on my turn with like a Hunt Master or a Thragtusk that my opponent cannot also like top deck a Thragtusk or something, and then he's immediately back into it. We're immediately trading blows. It feels like a really solid match in that even if I would lose, like a mid-range mirror match, it still felt like good. You could get like fucked with like Mana Flood or Mana Screw or something, but usually I felt those games went like a lot better, and usually you would get close to time, but they were just more enjoyable to me, right? Anyways, so I'm playing against this guy, right? And he has a Rakdos Key Rune, solid card, solid card. And he has like a Rakdos. No, sorry. I have the Rakdos Key Rune. And he has a Thragtusk, and he just drew for turn, and he like played a land. Okay, his hand is empty. His graveyard, there's nothing in there that he can use, right? So he goes to attack, and he's like, declare attacks, Thragtusk. And I'm like, okay, at me. And I don't have any creatures or anything except for the Key Rune. So I'm like, my retard face lit up. I had him. Boys. I fucking had him. So, with my retard face lighting up with joy, I'm astonished. I activate my Rakdos Key Rune, and I go, block, right? And he goes, okay, trade. And I'm like, no, first strike. And now he's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. And I'm like, yeah, you fucking forgot. I fucking got you. Years later, I can still recall that fucking game. But that was great. That was fucking great. Where I fucking got him there. And I ended up winning the match. And then the guy who I was going to play with to win the box is like, hey, you want to split the box? And I'm like, fuck yes, I do. I'm a retard. I don't know how I've gotten this far. So yeah, I split a box, and that was a good weekend. I got knocked out, got half a box. Pretty happy with that. I'm pretty goddamn happy with that. Another thing is like, and this is definitely 100% nostalgia speaking. I never had any Lilianas because I just couldn't afford them. I had like Garruk Primal Hunter, which was like, $1 or something. It was not expensive, right? Because it wasn't like the best. But Planeswalkers back then, they were still definitely a problem. They were 100% a problem, but like something that Magic like can't address and will never fucking address is just the emblems that Planeswalkers can generate. And just a Planeswalker emblem is typically like insanely powerful. It's just like, it's this thing that will exist for the rest of the game, and players cannot interact with it. I think that's really horrible that players cannot interact with that. It's sort of like the energy counter stuff. I wasn't really playing during the energy counter stuff, but you know what I mean? It's like something you cannot interact with. It's sort of like Infect or something. Like you cannot remove poison counters from yourself, or I don't believe you can. But it's just like shit like that is just really, really bad for the game. The game's really fucking bad. I'll get into that more, but I still have some good stories. But yeah, God, I loved Jund. Jund was my jam, man. It was just solid removal, good, impactful creatures, like everything is valuable. Like top decking a Vampire Nighthawk, late in the game, that's still like fucking solid. That's still like really solid. So it felt like every piece you had was good, You were never like upset about like top decking a creature because they always like did something. Oh, Boros Reckoner. That was a really good fucking card, right? Boros Reckoner. You know what I mean? Just like solid, and like everyone was playing it. And I think there's like a red, black, white like human deck or something, and it also had like Blasphemous Act, right? It was some deck like that with Boros Reckoner, and Boros Reckoner was just this insane card, and a bunch of decks were playing it. So this friend of mine was like, well, since Boros Reckoner's so good, and you're playing Jund, why not just like throw some Boros Reckoners and Junds since it's just like a really good card? And you're like, I mean, yeah, it checks out, right? Boros Reckoner's a good card. I want more good cards in my deck. Let's put some Boros Reckoners in. I distinctly recall several games where I would have 2 to 3 Boros Reckoners in my hand, and I did not have the 3 red mana to cast them. It was not a good time, but it was Friday Night Magic, so who really gives a fuck? But it was a good experiment. I liked it more than when I was willing to experiment more and just like have more fun. Whereas like later on, I would be just like, this is the best deck. I'm gonna copy this deck list perfectly, and I'm not gonna like have any fun or ingenuity or anything like that with it. I started to take it like more seriously, and I just had less fun with it. I don't remember exactly if I went like once this kind of Jund stuff rotated out, if I just went into playing Modern, but I think that's what happened. I think like a lot of this stuff rotated out, and there weren't like any decks I wanted to play, so some friends of mine suggested like Modern, so it's like, okay, I could try a different format. Definitely not Legacy, can't afford that shit. But back then, I think Tron was not that expensive. It was still like probably somewhat pricey, but like in comparison, I think Tron's like super fucking expensive right now. Tron was like reasonably priced, quote unquote, but it was like green red Tron, and it was just a good retard deck, and I could handle that. I could really handle that. So we went out to this event, and then I was playing against Jund, and it was like, I wish I could afford to play like Jund in Modern. That would be cool, but like, even if like I had the money now, I wouldn't justify that expense for a fucking deck of cards. You know what I mean? Like, I think that shit's insane now. But I'm playing against Jund, and it's like super awesome for me, where like I don't play like Ancient Stirrings or Sylvan Scrying. I don't play any of that shit, right? I don't play any of that shit. I just turn 1, Tron land. Turn 2, Tron land. Turn 3, Tron land. Karn. Karn exile is best thing. And he's like, so that's natural Tron? It's like, yes, it is.
Is that a raincoat? Yes, it is. Hey, Paul! Ah!
Oh my god, that was so good. I felt so bad he had like a little retard Tarmogoyf, and it's like, you're fucked. You are fucked, retard. Oh my god, that was so good. That was so good. Where it's just like, I can't lose, I did lose to a guy, however, that was playing Ad Nauseum. I had no idea what was happening. I just like, I'm like, okay, I trust you. He's just like Ad Nauseum. And then like Ad Nauseum is like, you reveal shit, right? And you do damage through that or something. And I'm like, I don't know. He played like some combo thing. It seems like he killed me. And then my friend's like, yeah, you fucking lost. I was like focusing more on school or whatever. So I stopped playing Magic for a few years. So I ended up doing that for a couple of years, and then I wanted to get back into Magic, later on, so I ended up starting up again, and it was like okay. I did like it was like green black, Wild Growth Walker, and like the Explore mechanic, right? It was the Explore mechanic, like Merfolk Branch Walker, and like the other 3 mana Merfolk and like shit like that with like Vivian Reed, and I'm like green black whatever, like yeah, I like that shit. That was fun. I liked Ravenous Chupacabra a lot. Carnage Tyrant, he's a beast. He's legit. That was solid. But I remember just like getting not upset, but just like it was fucking gay playing against like I did do arena for a little bit, and it's kind of the things that kind of turned me off from Magic more, where it's just like hey, spend a lot of money on packs, because we have 2 different types of currency on our website, because that's always a really good sign that you're playing a really good game or using a good service where it has different forms of currency. That's really good and healthy, right? But I just hated that with just like pieces of shit online that would just like stall the timer out because they're just upset because they're losing or whatever. And I'm like, this is so fucking gay. You know, I can't believe there's not like some type of clock here because the old Magic the Gathering, like, you know the old like Magic the Gathering online thing, like that one has a fucking chess clock, right? That one has that at least. It at least has that to keep track of that, and people just take full advantage of it. Teferi was a gay card to play against, you know, and Planeswalkers got like even worse. It felt like with like Lil Teferi and just like really overpowered shit, and it just like really wasn't fun to play. But I remember like we went to this event, you know, and I just hated it, where it was the Infinite Turn stack, Nexus of Fate. That's it, because Nexus of Fate tucks itself back into the deck, and they just don't do anything. You know, if they're milling me, if they're somehow like pinging me for damage, if they're doing something, that would be something. But it's just, hi, I take infinite turns, you know, and it's just like, you just kind of concede out of boredom, you know. And I was just sitting there at this event, and I'm like, this is so gay. Like, this is just so not fun. This is like, I'm just sitting here, you know, I'm just waiting for him to just do whatever, you know. So I lost that round, and it wasn't like that one event made me quit Magic the Gathering. But it was just like price, more unfair decks, like cost, power creep, that type of thing just made it like more and more unfair. And then my local store wasn't doing like Friday Night Magics anymore, except for like draft, because they couldn't like get enough people to do like standard. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I like playing standard, and you know, this just isn't really fun for me anymore. If it was my way, I would just like play mid-range all day against other mid-range players, and that would be it. It would just be mid-range v mid-range, and it'd be fun. It'd be good, fair Magic. You know, everyone would have a little back and forth. Their deck would be able to do some interesting stuff, and everyone would feel like okay about it, right? I didn't really have a purpose with this video except for a hey, here's some kind of funny, hopefully you found them somewhat funny, amusing stories from when I played Magic back in 2013. Maybe you can get a little glimpse of what it was like back then. But this is going to be a more off-topic video for this channel. I'm probably not going to do like any more like Magic videos. Probably not. I don't really see the point. I don't play anymore. The only like Magic content I still like watch or follow is Magic AIDS. Look him up on YouTube, Magic AIDS. He's really funny. I like his decks. I think he's a solid guy. He's the only one like I still like follow or pay attention to. There's other stuff on my channel. It's usually like reviews of TV shows and movies and such. If you got something you want to recommend, let me know. And that's going to be it. Dr. Infinity out.